Okay.
All right, so we're good to go?
Thank you, Mikhail.
Okay, thank you, Mikhail. Okay, so as I was saying, Oracle Procurement Cloud offers a complete source to settle solution. You can manage your suppliers, sourcing negotiations, contracts, purchase and settle with a completely modern solution. But as Ann was pointing out, it's all on a single data model. It's one seamless solution. And I think some of our other key differentiators on top of that lie within the strategic procurement side of our process. So yes, the items that you want to see today, Oracle does very well. Some of the day-to-day functions you'd expect from a world-class procurement system, payments, creating requisitions, creating POs. But I think the abilities to support collaborative negotiations, have enforceable contracts, a streamlined procure-to-pay process that leverages machine learning, automation, as well as managed supplier qualifications, registrations, re-registrations, as well as having embedded analytics, modern best practices, and automation in every turn. I think that is a key differentiator of ours. And really what we want to try and drive is as much automation as possible and ultimately try to achieve touchless requisition to check, right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal with our software. And I think what it'll allow you to do is simplify, standardize, and automate, increase your compliance and reduce risk, as well as increase your productivity. And again, I just want to reiterate that there isn't another solution out there that can not only provide a complete source to settle solution, but that's as well as settle, right? And all on the same platform, on the same solution. So in order to get started, I'd like to start with a supplier registration here. And this is the very beginning of the procurement process where we would onboard a supplier. And this is a self-service version of it. So essentially we would have a link that you could be sent to the supplier, or that could be on your website, or you could manage this internally. But again, through leveraging automation and best practices, you can have this sent to a supplier for them to manage. They can enter their tax organization and supplier type. This, when creating the supplier master, again, on the same solution, it's also going to drive tax reporting on the back end. But again, all talking to each other seamlessly. You can manage all your different contacts. So you might have a salesperson, someone in collections, AR, etc. You might have a corporate address as well as drop ship addresses and different warehouses. But the key here, and notice how this is very intuitive for suppliers to pick up. It's a train stop that you follow and click. But the questionnaire here is the embedded supplier qualification management. So here you have the ability to have attachments that you can click and download, and it could be something as simple as a code of conduct, or it could be a tax document such as a W-9 or a W-2, or excuse me, an I-9 or other tax document, and then you can have it also attached here as well. And again, depending on the type of supplier, if it's a indirect procurement, you may have only a few questions here. It might be a simple questionnaire. If it was something that was critical to your supply chain, then you may have a more robust questionnaire here. And again, we support all different types of formats here, but the point here is this allows you to not only vet quality suppliers, but it also allows you to make sure that you're not double entering information, and again have suppliers take onus of entering some of that information as well. So it just takes one more thing off of your plate as well. So
David, so just a quick question. Just let me know whether you want me just to use chat for raising questions or whether I just should interrupt. I want this to go as quickly as possible for you guys because you've already done it before, so I appreciate it. On that, is that able to be configured on a regional basis rather than a global basis, for example? So Australia, for example, will have questions in the supplier setup that, for example, Canada don't. Is that configurable at that level?
So the answer is yes. I mean, you can set up these questionnaires to be configurable for whatever your needs are. So again, depending on who you're need to have answered. Again, your sections might be different, your questions might be different, the documents you might want to have shared with the suppliers could be different. So the answer is yes, it can meet any of your needs as far as configurations for that point of view.
All right. Beautiful, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so now I want to kind of give a walk around the park of the UI a bit. And so you'll notice here when you first log in as Calvin Roth, the procurement manager, we leverage role-based access security. So this is going to do a couple of things. It's going to increase your internal controls, right, by managing your internal security. So that way you make sure that someone who's a buyer doesn't have the same access as someone who's a procurement manager. Someone who's an AP doesn't have the same access to reporting as a CFO, right? But ultimately, it's also going to make their job much more efficient. So depending on your role, you're going to see the areas that are more relevant to you as well. And that role-based access, again, it's going to drive other functionality in the software, including things like approval workflows as well. So here, when I first log in as a procurement manager, I would have access to, say, this procurement section of the software where I have all my different procurement applications. If I get lost, I could click on the home screen here. This will bring me back to this screen. I have the ability to save favorites. So I could have favorite reports, favorite work areas, the places I tend to go in and out. Instead of clicking through the application, I can save them. And then here we have workflow through this notification icon. So I have the ability to show, again, FYI notifications or requisitions. These are just a few from earlier today. But I also have approvals. And some of these, you'll notice, are auto-approved. Again, we're trying to emphasize touchless rec to check here. So basically, as much automation as you can have to streamline the entire process, including sourcing. We try to drive and show that. But again, there's going to be instances where you have a requisition for, say, in this instance, it's for $50,000 and 70 printers. So it's a little odd of an ask here. So you have the ability to, if you knew this was opening a new office, a new location, then you could say, okay, I'm going to approve or reject it. You have the ability to request more information, suspend this. You could delegate this if someone was going on vacation, add comments, add additional attachments. But the point here is, this can be accessed anywhere on a mobile device via email. You can click right into the requisition from here, and then the supporting documentation's right here. And depending on how this is configured, it could be serial approvals. So at a certain dollar threshold, it needs to go to another person for approval up the chain of command, or it could be a parallel approval. So again, whatever your business needs are, this is completely configurable. You're not chasing someone down at the water cooler. You're not chasing down disparate emails, and you're not having to scan in static images. This is all talking to each other on the same unified data model.
Again, Dave, sorry to interrupt. I assume attachments are all types of documents, not just PDFs, so Excel and Word and all that sort of stuff.
So does it support those attachments? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Good.
Yep. So in here, again, things to finish is just an extension of that approval workflow area. Again, just a configuration of this this UI, and then you could have intranet announcements depending how you want to set things up. But scrolling down here, I think executives are going to especially live here. I think heavily where this is our embedded analytics, and we would call info tiles infolets. And essentially, there's a report derivative here behind these. But what this lets you do is manage by exception and allow you to quickly scan and see if there's an issue and then take action on it. So take actual insight and then go directly to a work area to solve an issue. And this source to settle infolet, this is out of the box for someone in procurement. Someone in finance, they would have a finance relevant screen as far as infolets. And you could add or remove some of the ones that are already pre-delivered. We have dozens and dozens of these that are pre-delivered. We also have some space for you to add your own, where you can configure and add your own reports. And here's just another example of just all the many reports that we have pre-delivered. And again, you can click and drag and move these reports around. Some of them have multiple views of the same information, so you can look at them in multiple ways. So again, if you want to see negotiations a little bit bigger, you can make this infolet bigger. And these aren't just static reports. These are live information. These are dynamic. I can use sliders, for instance, to change this report, and then I can drill down into a report to get more information. And then I can also even drill down all the way into the detail. So again, say if it was like something that was more finance related, I could draw all the way down to a journal entry or something, or a payment invoice. And procurement, I could draw all the way down to the PO or to the invoice or the requisition. So again, really powerful analytics. And the key here is, again, they're pre-delivered. You don't have to spend a tremendous amount of time creating these from scratch. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of them pre-delivered. So if there isn't one that fits your needs, you can basically make copies of it to make different different copies of it, and then tweak it. Or if you need to build them from scratch, you can do that. So now I wanted to come into and show the requisition area here, focusing on the procurement side of things. So when I first log into self-service requisitions, you'll notice it looks just from shopping online. And that's the idea that we're going for, to make this simple, easy, intuitive. You don't have to do a lot of training, get up to speed. In case you have some employees that still have questions, we have out-of-the-box enabled help features here. So if you need to look up how to put in a request or look up some other information, we can have links here as well. But it really just as simple as typing in, saying, hey, I need a new helmet. And I can search for a catalog item. So these, again, are items that I have within my catalog. I've already negotiated contracts with my suppliers, and now it's just as simple as I want to requisition a new helmet for a new employee that's starting. I can click on the little shopping cart here. It's now going to go to this shopping cart. I could drive down and review, or I could just submit. And it's as simple as that. And I've already submitted a requisition here. And in a minute, this is going to actually auto approve, because again, we've set this up for us to approve anything under $50,000. So again, depending on what your materiality thresholds are or whatever your business needs are, you can have some of these items auto approve, so you don't have to have them create unnecessary bottlenecks, especially when it comes to things maybe like office supplies or something that isn't something that's going to directly impact your bottom line, or it's something that's more a business an expense that makes more sense to auto approve. You can do that. But you can do things like comparison shop. So here I can look at this yellow helmet. I can look at my white helmets. I can then do a quick comparison and take a closer look at these. And notice here how we have the ability to do line item discounts by purchase requisition. So anything over 10 helmets is actually going to be $44 instead of $49. It's going to be a 10% discount. But again, you have the ability to look at who the different suppliers are, what category they are, the purchase agreement. Again, this is all a single data model. So all your purchase agreements, your contracts, they're all on the same platform, and they're talking to each other without any back integration needed. It's all on the same platform. But again, you have the ability to quickly look at these items as well. Another thing that I wanted to show you here is also transparent punch outs. So you may have instance here, this optical mouse ball here. What this is a transparent punch out to a third-party supplier. And this image is actually being sent via XML data from the supplier. Essentially, the supplier is maintaining the image, all of the different descriptions, the supplier item number, the brand, cost, etc., and they're maintaining it. So that way, anytime they make a change, it just pushes directly to you. So that way you have less catalog items to maintain your end as a procurement organization. And it's as simple as going to a third-party punch-out. From my secure requisition page, I'm able to then log into a secure connection with this supplier. I can then add this item to a cart, check out, and then transfer it back to my shopping cart. And this is what the requisition would look like. So again, it's everything you think you would see in a requisition page. You have the ability to look at the item description. You can adjust quantities. You have the ability to, if you need to change a shipping address, you can. You can view the requester. You can adjust charge accounts and adjust your cost centers or your accounts. And then you could also adjust, if you had multiple, you could break them out by percentage, by quantity, etc. And again, depending on how you've set up your role-based access or really how you've configured your system, you can make this completely grayed out. So that way, when you negotiate that contract, you know that certain items are going to automatically go to a particular cost center in a particular expense account. You may have the ability to maybe gray out everything except a few. So you'd have the same expense account would be the same, except for maybe cost center. You might have a couple different options of changing that. So again, it all depends on what your needs are, but that's all configurable as well. You can make it basically automatically populate. You can make it so you need to fill that information out. But again, leveraging modern best practices, you'd be able to have user security roles kind of configure so you're not having expenses go where you don't want them. And then you have the ability to add notes to the suppliers, other additional attachments, et cetera, things like that. And then we have a bit of a catch-all section here. So in case you can't find a particular item, well, you can click on I can't find what I need here. And we have these forms that you can configure to meet your needs. This is for maybe a unique good that wasn't a catalog or a third-party punch-out catalog item. Sometimes you may need to request maybe a different consulting service. You could have a supplier set up here. And again, notice the suppliers are already picked. They've already been vetted. We have an agreement in place. So we already negotiated all the spend. It just comes up to just in quantity and price here. Another example that might be business cards. You might have configured the way your business cards look and feel, but you want to just, every time a new employee onboards, they just need to change their name, title, etc. But they're still going to get the same business card. And again, you've negotiated that with this supplier, with this agreement, etc. And they can enter one there as well. And then another way you could even requisition is potentially leveraging our digital assistant chatbot here. So I could even reorder business cards leveraging a tool like this. So I'm just selecting my quantity, and does it want me to create a requisition? Yes. And then this digital assistant could even create a requisition for some simple things like a business cards. We could even do things like ordering laptops, etc. So, and again, it's created a requisition number. So really powerful requisition tools here. And I think that covers some of the things that I wanted to show here. So are there any questions on requisitions before I move forward?
Yeah, how does the request for quote process work? So I've got a basket of items in inventory that I've got, and I want to go out to market to get new pricing.
Oh, okay. So that would be basically leveraging sourcing. That's a different part. That's more of our strategic procurement side of things. I'd love to, yeah, I would love to set an in-depth. I don't know if we have a whole lot of time to show that in depth. I do have a few that are ready to go. So I think later in the demonstration, I am going to show you some of that. And I think we can.
As long as you can do it, that's all I want to know.
Yeah, I'll make some point to show that to you, and I'll cover that right before reporting, and I can get into that a little deeper. But we definitely support that. And something actually I just want to point out here before I move on is a shopping list. This is just another thing that can make your life a little easier. You basically could set up mini bombs here. You could, if you have a new employee coming on, maybe they need a new safety vest, hard hat, steel-toe boots, etc. You'd be able to build a little kit for them and then be able to punch out all the items at once instead of going to search for all of those items. So again, it's very intuitive, it's easy to use, and it makes the purchasing much easier. And this is something that, to Ann's point of Oracle using their own financial software to close their books in 10 days, when I onboarded, I used the same exact stuff. So, and I wasn't given formal training on how to do this. I was basically said, hey, go order the things you need. It's already been approved. And I just, from a self-service point of view, this is rolled out to every employee at Oracle. And I was able to pull up all the things that I needed. So again, it's definitely something that can drive automation for your organization and add value. So with there, we've covered purchase orders, right? Logged in as Calvin Roth, the manager. We're able to go over the role-based dashboards, the catalogs, the transparent punch-outs, and also the forms to catch everything else. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was getting into, so from here, right, we've talked about some self-service procurement and purchasing. I now want to get into payables and the supplier portal. And that way we'll talk about invoice automation. We'll talk about doing a PO flip from the supplier portal. And then also we'll briefly talk about multi-currency invoicing and payment execution. So I'm going to log in, use a couple people here. I want to, again, take a second here to reiterate. I'm going to be logging into the supplier portal as a supplier. So this is not someone in your procurement organization or someone in your accounting office. This is someone who is a supplier. And I want to reiterate this because it's going to look very similar, because it is. It's essentially the same software. It's just through those role-based access, they have much stricter security access, but this is all on the same system. So a supplier here has the ability to share invoices, share all these relevant purchasing documents, and do it in real time. And even they have analytics and info tiles, right, to make working with you that much more effective and efficient. So when I first log into the supplier portal as a supplier, I have a bunch of different areas or tasks that I can manage. I can manage all my purchase orders, my schedules and acknowledgments of those schedules. I can manage all my purchase agreements, my shipments, my advanced shipping notices. I can view all my different receipts and returns. I can look at my questionnaires in regards to supplier qualification management. So you can constantly do requalifications for your old reliable suppliers to make sure they actually are reliable. It can just be as simple as here, changing their company profile. So similar to that self-service registration process I showed you at the beginning, you might have dozens of addresses here, right? You might have dozens and dozens of contracts. To manage this disparately in an Excel document or somewhere else, this could be burdensome. So the ability to have your suppliers update this information and push it to you, that it's accurate, is much more effective. And again, it just creates a much more efficient way to work with your suppliers. To your point with those negotiations, I could come in and view my negotiations, and I could look at this one, which it's a negotiation for laptops. I could revise my my response to this. So this is a negotiation for some new laptops. I could come in, I could look at my requirements. I have, again, those supplier qualification items here. This is going to drive some of the weighting to help decide what supplier is correct one for me. So these certifications, right? I may not necessarily want to use a supplier that's the cheapest. Maybe I want to use someone that's just more reliable, that's been in business for 11 years. They may not have the cheapest price, but I know that they're consistent. Again, or if it's something where you just need cleaning supplies and it's a pandemic and you just want the cheapest price, again, it depends what your needs are. It's all configurable. And you can look at your different lines and respond just like here. If this was much more robust in regards to dozens and dozens of lines, you could respond by spreadsheet. But again, this is just another example of what a supplier can do in regards to communication with you from your purchasing organization. And then the thing I want to get back, just to circle back now, right, and focus on automated invoice payments. So now I want to focus on creating a PO flip. So this is a supplier creating an invoice from a PO that's already been sent. So if I come in and I have a PO, it's going to search for this PO, and I'm going to be able to pull my different information here. I'm going to put in my invoice number, my date, and then I have the ability to look at my purchase lines. And I did submit this purchase order earlier. So this purchase order has already been sent. This invoice has already been sent. But ultimately, if there's a purchase order that's here, you have the ability to pull the lines in and then flip that purchase order into an invoice. And this invoice has actually been sent to them. So again, this is one of the easiest ways for a supplier to send invoices to you. And again, that invoice has already been sent to the supplier. But you have, if there's an instance where a supplier can't leverage EDI or they can't leverage this PO flip, what they can do is leverage our latest technology with automated invoice processing and intelligent document recognition. So to switch gears now, I just want, again, we're still talking about automated invoice processing.
Dave, I just wanted to interject just one thing quickly. one of the things when we've demoed this to other customers, sometimes I get the question in particular from finance, you know, I have hundreds, and maybe in some cases I've got a couple of customers with literally tens of thousands of suppliers. What's changed at Oracle is we don't charge for supplier access. And that through the supplier portal functionality that Dave has just described, I just wanted to point out that there is no user fee for the suppliers to come in and do those self-service tasks, updating their information, the invoicing functionality that Dave just showed. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't know if you were aware of that already, but that was a big change for us. And as I said, I have some customers that are using this today and literally have thousands of suppliers that make use of that functionality. Very, very popular. Thanks very much, Dave.
No, thanks,
I don't know,
Ian. We currently have 90% of our suppliers using our current portal, so they don't get charged for that as well. So that's nice to know.
Yeah, that if you were considering, Andrew, how many suppliers do you have approximately?
The real answer is too many, Ian. We have about 1,200 active suppliers.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, there's a whole purchasing strategy on, you know, what's the optimal number by commodity code. But suffice it to say that at one time, that was a concern about the number of suppliers and also the licensing for that. So we'll take up the details in that with Anne, but suffice it to say you won't be charged at all for the supplier access to portal. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian.
Great. No, it's a great point, Ann. Appreciate that pointing that out. Yeah, absolutely. So now to focus on the AP side of things, and so again, I'll just backtrack real here, just to the point of we're now talking as Roger Bolton, who's someone in accounts payable at the buyer organization. So how IDR works is essentially you have invoices that are scanned from a server into the cloud, and then if they meet all of the criteria, if the technology between the machine learning and the character recognition, it automatically populates the fields and it meets the thresholds of validation, it'll just automatically go and get paid. So again, it can be touchless, and that's the idea, is you have 1,000 invoices to hopefully have 80 plus be touchless, right? There are going to be examples of non-standard invoices or ones that have some exceptions, or maybe a supplier changed their invoice format or something on you. So you may have to have them come down and routed to the correct person. And the beauty of our new system, which is brand new at Oracle, it's intelligent document recognition. And it's document because the idea is to hopefully be more than just payables, right? You can be able to scan receivables and contracts and pretty much anything. But right now, the technology is there for AP invoices and expenses, which I'll get into a little later. But the point is you can teach the system, and then through AI and machine learning, it'll then learn, and the hit rate will increase more, especially when you have non-PO invoices. That can be very helpful. So if I log in here as our accounts payable supervisor, Roger Bolton, when I come into the invoices section, and again, notice we have more of these analytics. These help you manage by exception as a payables manager. So I can come in and I look at all my invoices that were scanned in through IDR. And I could look at maybe the ones that are in red and 15 plus due, right? So these are invoices that are much overdue. I need to prioritize my work and either focus on working on these or delegate them to the correct person. But the point is I can take, instead of manually entering our invoice, right, I can have as many as possible scanned in, and then hopefully automatically sent out for approval, or just need a quick review, and that's it. But again, the whole point of that is, again, managed by exception, right? Instead of manually keying everything in. You have a couple different infolets here as well. Ability to look at prepaids, the total amount due, invoices that are on hold and by the different categories. But here I want to look at these ones that I've already sent in here. So this is an example of an invoice that has come in, and it's came in with no issues, right? This is a baseline. And again, this is a demo environment, so we have to see them here to make sure we have something to show you instead of getting automatically processed. And so you'll notice that it automatically opens up a copy of the invoice that was scanned in. And I'll just blow this up for you. You'll notice the invoice number and the invoice date here. This is a non-PO. There's no PO here. And basically what happens is if it's an image, it's scanned and turned into a PDF. And if it's already a PDF, it will basically just make sure it converts and takes the textual layer behind it as a PDF. So that way you have a repository of invoices that you can search on. They're not just static images. And you have the ability to increase your hit rate by doing this as well, to populate all of your different fields. And so this is an example of an invoice that came in properly, but sometimes you'll have ones that come in and you'll notice this invalid. And so let's take a closer look at this invoice. So notice there's no invoice number here. The due date is a bit off. Let me just blow this up for you. So notice it has a reference number. The suppliers changed the format or something within the invoice to make the system question this, and the date's different as well. So essentially what the system is saying is it doesn't have a date, so just put today's date, and then it doesn't have an invoice number. So you can now, through the newest technology, teach the system. And it's as simple as clicking in a box here and then highlighting the date, and now it pulled the date from the invoice. And the same thing here, I can click on the invoice number, highlight where I want the invoice number to be to teach the system, and then it pulls that information. And then it's a matter of just saving it. And it will teach the system. And now it's populated the invoice number there. So again, and then the idea is the next time that supplier sends an invoice, even if it has a reference number or something odd, it's going to pull that information in and learn and increase its hit rate. So the next thing I just wanted to show quickly in regards to invoices is that we do support multi-currency. So any currency, we support different tax regimes. It all is just a matter of configuration, essentially. But when it comes to taxes and localizations and that type of reporting and support, we do support those. And then again, as Ann pointed out, we support 30 languages. So if any type of tax or localization need, we'll be able to meet that for you. And the last thing I wanted to do was to round out with payment execution, right? So again, this is a system that can also process the payments as well. So I can come in and I could, again, we can manage electronic payments, printed checks, positive pay files, remittances, any banking file that you need to support, any currency, wires, ACH, we can support that for you in different formats as well. And it's as simple as just submitting a payment process request. We have templates here to help speed the process up, where this will essentially pre-populate many of the fields here. Just gonna give it a name, and then you have different options here. Again, you can configure this to meet your needs. You can then have either installments to review, or you can, again, automate this process even more and just have payments be sent out. Ultimately, I create a batch here just so you can see what one looks like once I submit that process. And it's basically just a process that needs to be run. It can be scheduled. So again, it can be automated, or to the point of, you schedule these to run and then it's just someone reviewing, right? So to save a tremendous amount of time. And you can just review all your different installments, and you can pull the ones out that you need to pull out. You can add additional ones if you need to, but ultimately it's as simple as running a file and submitting a process. So with that, I'll just take another pause here. So we've covered self-service procurement, we've covered purchasing, we covered payables, including payment execution, showed you more analytics, and we did cover the supplier portal. So the next area that I did want to go into was expenses, and then we'll do some more formal reporting as well. And in reporting, I'll cover procurement contracts, supplier qualification, and sourcing at, again, a high level, just so you get an idea of some of our strategic procurement initiatives here. So before I do that, I'm going to get into expenses. So I'm going to be using Amy Marlin, a project manager, and Matthew Schneider to show some reporting we have within expenses. And we're going to go over also some of our new machine learning technology within expenses and mobile expense entry. So I've logged in as Amy Marlin, and I just need to enter a password here for my mobile app here real quick, because that one times out quick. So if I logged in as Amy Marlin, she's our project manager, and if you log in as the expenses point of view, this is the expenses that she would be using when she first logs in. She can notice that she has the ability to create expense reports. She has the ability to look at all the different expenses that have come through. She has the ability to even look at things like digital assistant expenses. But the, and you know what? I'm trying to get my phone mirror technology to work here because it was working all day. I have to laugh at this. And I'm just trying to get this to work. Here we go. Aha. And once I log into the app, I'll show you how I would process expenses at Oracle. Because again, we use the same technology. So we have the ability to process expenses via SMS or through the mobile app as well. So actually, I'll just show you that real quick. So if I log in as a, this is actually my expenses that I've submitted. So this is some of the latest technology we have. So in September, there's the last expense that I had because we haven't traveled because of COVID. I had the ability to scan in with our new SMS technology. I took a picture, it just asked for a description. And then from there, I was able to then show, it scanned and picked up the dollar amount, it picked up the vendor, it picked up my description, and then it auto submitted an expense report for me within 7 days. So really, really powerful tools here. And I'm going to try and get this app to work. Another new item that we have here, again, part of IDR, you can actually use expenses as well. So here, this is our email convergence for our demo environment. Essentially, this is our the role-based accesses for our different demo personalities. They have their own email addresses because, again, that email can drive some of the functionality. So essentially what this has done this morning, as you can see here, and essentially I can take pictures of receipts. So this is the frothy monkey here. And I was able to have the expense sent to my email. And then it was able to then pull directly into the system and submit those expenses into the system here. So if I log into expenses, you'll see them as digital assistant expenses down here. And there's the frothy monkey. So this is the newest technology, right? To try and get away from having to do expenses manually.
That'll be a godsend.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna have to reach my one more shot here. Dave's laughing because I mean I was literally during this demonstration I was even tapping my phone consistently to get this to work here. If this doesn't work in another second here, I'm just gonna move on to reporting.
Don't get too worried, mate. It's a demo. I get it.
So I'm just going to move on to the expense reporting here quick in an effort to try and get my expenses application to work. So if I come into reports and analytics, and again, this is a payables manager, right? Someone who may be like auditing the expense reports. He has the ability to look at different expenses reporting metrics. And then here I have the ability to even change some of the visualizations. I can make this a bar graph instead. But ultimately, you have the ability to look at expenses by category, expenses by expense cost by category and trends. You could look at your top spenders, policy violators, late filers, et cetera, et cetera. So really powerful analytic tools here, even in the expenses side of things. And this expense reporting area reports and analytics, you have the ability to we have, again, dozens of reports and dashboards that come pre-delivered. So I can show you that here in the Calvin Roth, who's a procurement manager. We have even more analytics. So we have the ability to look at different negotiated savings analysis, top 10 spend by category, right? There's a bunch of different analytics that you'll be able to be able to run. You can export these to Excel, print them, etc. So this is just a couple examples of some simple reports that you might have. Again, negotiation savings. So this is going to show negotiations. That's that strategic procurement, the ability to negotiate savings, and a report of how much you've saved per item. And I want to show some of that strategic procurement items here. So if I come into purchase agreements, I have an ability to view all my different purchase agreements here. So I can look at my different agreements, ones that are at risk for consumption, or ones that, again, may be issues. The point here is anything that's a potential issue, I can then quickly address it through some of these analytics. We can do the same thing with qualifications. So all of those supplier qualifications that we sent out to the suppliers, again, you even have infolets here. So again, you can do requalifications. You can send these out every maybe every year, every 2 years, depending what your needs are, and requalify your suppliers. And you can track all of that quickly here. You can also, under negotiations, even within the workspace of just sending out bids, right, for goods, there's even analytics here. So this is an example of a sourcing program. So a sourcing program, think of it as a collection of individual sourcing negotiation events. And you can then create a common goal to try and drive an outcome. For example, this is internal IT spend. So I'm trying to drive IT spend down as much as possible and create some savings. So here I have a plan that's in progress, my base target, and then I have the ability to, again, see reporting on results. So by using this sourcing program, I was able to save $70,000. And this is an example of one of those completed sourcing events. And again, it's riddled with analytics here to help you really drive home the point of what's the correct supplier to pick, and again, make the process easier. Because you can have a lot of information in these supplier negotiations, but ultimately we leverage a lot of reporting, analytics, and automation to help make it that much easier. So scrolling down, again, that supplier is given a score based upon the questionnaire, based upon the pricing that they have for the metrics they send out. Here we have the line item details. So if I wanted to then just quickly just look at this negotiation, again, this is all in one single data model, right? So I have the ability to even look at my contract terms. So we have a whole clause repository. It uses, has Microsoft Word integration. It has the ability to redline and track changes, and then also has DocuSign integration to sign these documents. You can then look at all your different suppliers. Here's an example of the different line items. So these are the items that I sent out, and these are the specifications of the items. So you can send a lot of information to these suppliers. And then again, the key here is when this is all done, this one that's already been awarded, well, now I can actually drive all the way down to a purchase order, right? So it can create maybe a blanket purchase agreement or an individual order. And again, this is all in a single data model. So now I was able to onboard a supplier through self-service. I could then have them, through setting up a supplier qualification and leveraging automation and auto scoring and a whole bunch of other things, I could drive to then pick the correct supplier for that item, have it then create a PO. If it was under a certain dollar amount or whatever your configurations are, it could then actually get auto approved and paid. And it could essentially be from source to payment out the door, in theory, touchless, right? Or very, very little human intervention. And that's the key. And that can drive a tremendous amount of value to your purchase organization, especially when you get, get rid of the maverick spend and you get purchases on contract and you have a tremendous amount of reporting here. But the point is everything is on one system. There's no backend integration because it all talks to each other seamlessly as one solution. So I was able to show some of the analytics within that realm, within those negotiations. I think the last thing here is just to show the procurement dashboard. So here we have a dashboard of all of our procurement analytics that are available. So again, we are able to have metrics across the entire source to settle suite. So I have the ability to look at invoicing. And again, these are not static reports. These are dynamic. I can click on these. I know you already saw this report, but again, there's ones for procurement. So again, spend by category, top spend by suppliers. And we pre-deliver, again, dozens and dozens of these dashboards and these reports for these dashboards. So the key here is you don't necessarily have to go out and build these from scratch. You can use these and hit the ground running immediately and add value. You can use these as templates, make copies of them, and then tweak them to meet your needs. It might be as simple as just changing your branding or maybe adding some different cost centers or different business units, or depending how you want to divide some of this information up. But ultimately, that's more of making a small change or a tweak than creating a whole new report. We deliver so many reports that you're able to add value much more quickly doing that. And again, you have the ability to print, you can edit this dashboard, you have the ability to export to Excel, etc. But again, I want to reiterate, sometimes it's tough to think about, your current instinct is, I just want to get a bunch of data and dump it into Excel, right? And I think the cloud can really negate quite a bit of that or eliminate the need for that, because it's, especially with an integrated system like this, where you have pieces coming from everywhere. You don't have to log into a bunch of different systems, pull information, and then put the puzzle pieces together. It's all seamless in one system. And any information you want, you can basically get from a report or a dashboard once you've set it up. So again, it's just a matter of finding out what KPI you need and what data visualization you need, and then it'll eventually make your life that much much easier, right, in regards to reporting and analysis. So with that, let me just come back to the slides here. So we've covered reporting, we covered the dashboards, we've pretty much covered the whole procurement to pay window here. And I was able to show some of our expenses there. I'm going to just try one more time. Let's see if I can get that to work. But ultimately, I think that we were able to demonstrate a lot here. Do you have any questions on expenses or anything on reporting that we showed you?
No, Dave, thanks, mate. Don't panic about the mobile not working, mate. I get it, the demos, and I get the concept, so which is fantastic. So
I'm sorry, and I just want to say Anne actually has a few videos, and a couple of videos are specifically some demonstrations on the mobile app. And I just want to drive home, it is that simple. I mean, it's literally what we're at Oracle, we're using the same information. I used to have dread having to put expense reports together, and it's not like that anymore. It's honestly taking pictures and submitting them and automatically now, especially leveraging things like the SMS and now this new IDR technology. I can even email the receipts in. So it really is that much more streamlined, and we can definitely provide a few videos just if you want to, you know, put a name to the face, so to speak, of seeing what that looks like. But
that's all good, mate. I get it. So I get demos and things like that. I've been doing them for years. So,
sure.
Mate, that's more than what we will need ever. The capability there. Obviously, the devil's in the detail, but it covers all the questions that I've got. So thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think we've covered I think everything that we had planned for an overview. And if there is any other specific question or something else that maybe you wanted me to show you, if you didn't read deeper questions, maybe something again on the strategic side of things, or anything else you need me to show, let me know. If not, I can then pass it off to Mikhail and Hitachi, and they can go over their procurement accelerator tool.
No, thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, David. Good morning, Andrew, and good evening, everyone else. My name is Mukhil Khandelwal. I'm director with Hitachi Vantara, based out of Dallas, Texas in the US. I've been with the firm for more than 16 years now, and I'm delivery leader for our cloud implementation projects in North America region. David, before I switch over to the actual demo related details, do you mind just going a couple slides up to the Black & Veatch slide? Oh, here it is. Thank you. So just, for a moment, I want to quickly talk about this great success story both Oracle and Hitachi have at Black & Veatch. So Black & Veatch, based out of Kansas City in the US, $3.5 billion employee-owned company in EPC space, engineering, procurement, construction, 11,000 or so employees, 100 plus offices globally, 26 plus countries, whatnot. The reason I'm spending a couple minutes on this one is because we just see a lot of similarities with what we are talking about over here for Redpath. Black & Veatch were on a legacy application, on-prem application, and they were looking to digitize their source-to-pay process, get onto modernizing it, and their asks were very similar again to yours: globalized solution, standardized business processes, out-of-box solution, all of that. And the only reason they were not able to get onto that was, and they were going through, again, a very similar software selection process. The only reason they were not able to make a decision was the gap that they had in their services procurement space. Now, this is an organization. It was very interesting, Andrew, to hear, just 1,200 or so vendors. That I assume you were talking just about Australia with that volume. Because I asked similar question in our discovery call to Anne, and I think the number that she gave was more than 10,000 vendors globally.
Yeah, so 1,200 is just Australia.
Yeah, so here we go. Black & Veatch, they more than 10,000 or so vendors. They had 1,000 purchase orders that were keyed in on a weekly basis, 600 to 800 AP invoices coming in daily. So some crazy data volume that we were dealing with. So this is an organization that decided to move on to a cloud-based modern day solution, and the biggest gap they were dealing with was services procurement. Up to 80% of their purchase orders were falling in that bucket. And that's the solution, the industry solution that we're going to talk about today, falls in, that's the gap we filled for this client, and we were successfully able to move them from an on-prem legacy application to a completely digitized end-to-end source-to-pay solution, which was very tightly knit with their existing application. So with that, we'll switch over to the next slide here. And Andrew, as we go through this, we would love to hear some more feedback from you. If any of this that I'm talking about, be it the client or the solution over here, or the business processes, business challenges, feel free to interrupt.
Thank you. Yep.
So here are a few examples of business scenarios that we have seen for our clients who are in asset intensive industries like yours. I'll pick an example over here. We call those complex POs, we call those services purchase orders. Let's say engineered to order material. So there are multiple steps involved in the process. We call those milestones. There are deliverables associated with each of those milestones, could be commercial, could be technical. Let's say the material is being put together, then it gets shipped, it gets delivered, maybe there's some installation that is required, multiple quality checks that happen on the way. As all of that work happens, the project manager, who's probably sitting in middle of nowhere, if I may say, a remote site, will have to keep track of all of this work getting done along with this project team. As the work starts getting completed, as the milestones are met, the vendor will send an invoice to a procurement coordinator, probably sitting in the corporate office. The procurement coordinator will then start backtracking everything that was done that adds up to the invoice. That means chase the project manager, reach out to the staff engineers, gather all the paperwork that will be required. Maybe some of the cost associated with this equipment or material has to be passed over to the customer, which means attach it to the invoicing, the billing process within the project, all of that. And that could easily take between 30 to 90 days, which meant on one side, if there were any early payment discounts, the company would lose on that. And then even worse, you are overdue on your invoices. The companies that run in this space, in a lot of situations, they are bidding on these projects with a negative margin because the competition is so brutal. And the only way they can make money out of this is to procure their material most efficiently, right? So that's what was at stake for this client of ours, Black & Veatch, and in general with within this space for some of our clients. If we could go to the next slide here, please. I'm sorry, maybe there's a lag. I'm not sure if it's just for me. Here we go. Thank you. So let's fast forward it to, once the accelerator along with cloud solution was implemented. What that meant was the buyer would key in the purchase order along with all the pay items right there in the application. All the deliverables, be it commercial, be it technical, they'll be attached to the purchase order. The purchase order will go out for approvals. Very, very similar, to what David earlier covered on material side. But as you'll see, that when we get into the demo for services PO, it's our solution is very tightly knit to the actual SaaS application. So similar to that, it will go out to for approvals. Once approvals are in place, the supplier will be able to see the same purchase order on supplier portal on the other side. As the work starts getting completed, as the milestones are met, as the deliverables are completed, supplier is able to submit the deliverables real time, work confirmations real time for approval via the supplier portal. All of those get routed to the site engineers, to the project manager for approvals, and no one's waiting for an invoice, right? Let's say, we have reached a milestone, the invoice comes in, the invoice gets attached to the purchase order. If all the deliverables underneath that invoice or the milestone with which it is associated are done, there it goes for payment processing. AP invoice to pay cycle, which used to get dragged from 30 to 90 days, gets squeezed to 7 to 14 days. So that's the difference we have seen this accelerator brings for some of our clients. And by our contractual terms, I'm not able to discuss any of the savings numbers from our clients, but you can imagine that the savings could easily run into millions of dollars. So with that, any questions, Andrew? Any thoughts still here before we jump onto the demo? Is this a story that syncs with what Redpath does?
Oh, look, I get the acceleration, all that sort of stuff. We're in Australia, we're known as very good payers. We have a pretty slick process here, so we don't pay many suppliers late. Generally, it's because the supplier hasn't submitted an invoice into the portal that we use currently. So acceleration not too big an issue for us. More at the front end on getting our guys to receipt goods is probably the biggest issue.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
But I
Thank
get
you,
the concept. I like the concept. So, yeah.
Thank you. With that, I'll pass it over to Ajay for the demo. Ajay.
Thank you, Mukhil. Good morning, Andrew. I'm Ajay Narayan. I'm a senior manager with Hitachi Vantara. Been with the firm for more than 12 years, and I play a role of cloud architect on our cloud engagements. So what I'm going to do here is give you an overview and a walkthrough of our services procurement accelerator and the solution. So let me share my screen here real quick. I hope you're able to see my screen. So like Mukhil mentioned, Services Procurement Accelerator is truly an end-to-end solution when it comes to services set of things, right? So because of its ability to interact with the supplier portal, the ability to interact with your purchasing suite, and it does interact with your invoicing side of things as well. And while all of this happens, it does give a real-time visibility to a vendor or a supplier when it comes to their invoices, right? And also not only not only this enables this end-to-end flow, but all of this can now be tracked and controlled through the system, right? Just by mere availability of this solution. So what I have here on my screen is a standard purchase order screen for Oracle. So I've keyed in a purchase order for this demo. All the header information, the supplier related information, all of that. And a line for a purchase order with 100,000 Canadian dollars and all other information that's required for a PO. So once we have a purchase order keyed in, user will be able to get into the services procurement by using the navigation of the button that's available right within the standard purchase order screen. And once they launch or click on this link, it will take the user onto the landing page of the solution. Right? So once they are in this services procurement solution, there are different options or feature functionalities that they will be able to leverage. Key ones being deliverables, pay items, and work confirmations. All of this is completely controlled through role-based access, which is driven again via the standard Oracle applications. Right? Given the role that has been provided to a user, few of these functionalities get enabled and disabled, and things like that are all controlled. And it's a simple, single sign-on enabled for a seamless navigation. So we'll start with the deliverables. So this is the page where a user or for that matter, even supplier, they'll be able to upload all the submittals as a proof for the work that will be performed or that would have been performed, right? So there are several options available here when it comes to deliverables. It could be a commercial driven deliverable, or it could be a technical deliverable like a blueprint or something of that nature, right? And then it could be a relative one when it comes to number of days and things like that, or it could be a fixed based deliverable. So there are different feature functionalities and options available for capturing the deliverable information. Not only that, so we can also identify approvers who will be reviewing the submittals and eventually approve the work that has been performed. So those approvers can also be tagged to these deliverables, and if there are any attachments that need to be uploaded, those can be uploaded as well using this solution. And some basic additional features available on the screen, like the bulk upload facility, right? If we are dealing with large volumes of data, users can prefer to export an Excel based template, fill in all the necessary information or pre-populate with the means they have, and then just come here and upload it with a single button. So this is all about deliverables and the function or the feature that's available here. So once I have captured my deliverables, so then we will move on to creating what I call the pay items, right? Or in other words, the billing definition for my purchase order. How will I go about the payments for this work that will be performed? So all of that information can be entered and captured here on the pay item screen. And again, like we have on the deliverable screen, we also have additional functionalities when it comes to the pay item information. To begin with, the different kind of pay items that we can capture. We can define a milestone based billing, or it could be a rate based billing, or could be a simple lump sum based billing that we can capture on this pay item screen. In my very example, I have created a purchase order with just one line, but when it comes to my pay items, I want to further split that into 3 different milestones, depending on my contractual terms that I have with the vendor, right? So something like that. So I have staged or created my 3 different milestones, and the project manager that I will or I would have identified on the project that's assigned to my purchase order can be defaulted as the approver. We can always go ahead and add additional approvers depending on the need. And also the deliverable that we created earlier can all be linked here to the pay item itself. So we can further review those when we actualize the work. Here are a few options to export a template, an Excel based template, capture all of this information, especially when it comes to a large volume like hundreds of lines of PO and things like that, and upload it straight away into the application. So once I have all my pay item structure established, then the next stage is to start creating work confirmations so we can actualize or realize the work that has been performed. So in this case, for my first pay item or my very first milestone, I have further created 4 different work confirmations depending on how the work gets performed. So we can go to different granular level depending on the business scenario here. So here we have 4 different work confirmations that have been created. And since I have already identified my deliverables on the pay item itself, system kind of defaults those onto the work confirmation along with the reviewers. Again, we have an ability to go and add additional approvers if required before we submit these for approval. Now, both of these deliverables as well as the work confirmation specifically are also exposed to suppliers, so they can go ahead and do upload or create the necessary data via the supplier portal. So here I have logged in as a supplier, and we have enabled a couple options, info tiles here for deliverable and work confirmation, using which supplier can straight away go and create their deliverables as well as work confirmations as required. Now, when a supplier submits a work confirmation, it first gets routed to the procurement team, so they can come here, review those, and then further submit it for the actual approval to these reviewers that have been identified. So next, when we start submitting these work confirmations, a couple different scenarios come into play. Right? Scenario 1 could be I want my invoice to be auto created or auto generated as soon as my work confirmations are approved. And I don't want to wait for vendor to submit, right? Expedite the process. So I can enable the auto generation of an invoice as an option. And as soon as I submit my work confirmations here, either individually or I can do a bulk submission for the approval, there will be notifications that will first go out for getting the approval on the work confirmations. So those will be sent in 2 ways. One, it will be via the complex PO work list within the application, right, where we can see all the notifications that are pending to be actioned and approve or reject. Also, there will be an email notification that will go out, so users have flexibility to approve either via email or via the portal itself. So once the work confirmation gets approved, and if I have chosen to auto generate an invoice, system will go ahead and create an invoice and further route another notification to the project manager for seeking and final approval. Or if I decide not to auto generate an invoice, I can still go ahead and submit these and get my work confirmations approved and come back later to link my invoice to my work confirmation. So as soon as I do that, system automatically recognizes that and it immediately routes that invoice to project manager with necessary details so they can review and approve. And same work list based notifications will go out as well as the email based notifications. So there are two different scenarios that can be played here using this solution. And as well as in a typical process, if a vendor, for whatever reason decides to submit one single invoice for all of these different work confirmations, yes, tool will allow you to link same invoice across these work confirmations. Or if a vendor submits multiple invoices and break the amount into multiple parts for a single work confirmation, we can still go ahead and do that. And anytime we do any of these scenarios, whenever we try to submit, or even for that matter, link the invoice, some validations get triggered behind the scene. And if there is a violation of the amount or any of that validation, there will be some notifications to the user right on the screen itself, letting them know why and what is causing the failure. So all those checks and balances have been built in and the entire process has been tightened all along the way. Another aspect when it comes to invoices. So if I have my invoice linked and submitted for approval, the way system controls the invoice is, to begin with, it immediately places, I would say, a default hold on this invoice, right? That way the invoice is not enabled for payment. And then as I start going through my entire process, be it my work confirmation creation or be it my approval from the project manager, there is a tracking that happens via the system, via this service procurement accelerator, and it constantly keeps either applying or releasing certain holds, which in a way gives visibility to your supplier as to what's happening with the invoice, right? So in this very example that we see, it all started with a default hold that gets placed. And when I started creating my work confirmations, it places a work confirmation in progress hold, which kind of tells me my work confirmations are probably on the approval process. And once they get approved and it next goes to the project manager, the next set of hold gets applied. And once the PM approves, and the final hold is released. And this is how invoice will now be made eligible for payment. So that's another feature functionality that completely is built into this solution. One other feature that I would like to quickly touch upon here, let me go back to my services procurement, is the retention functionality, right? Based on my terms of the contract, if there is a retainage involved for my invoice, whenever an invoice gets created and there's a part of the amount that's retained, so we will be able to even view, the administrator will be able to view that retained amount within the portal itself. The invoice that's matched to the PO will show up, and they can control whether they want to release the amount that's retained or to further a partial release of that retained amount. So all of that can be controlled through this retainage functionality within the portal itself. So another feature functionality that has been enabled for a user. So this is kind of the overview of the entire flow. It all starts with deliverables, defining milestones, and once all of those are established, as we move along the process, actualizing the work by creating work confirmations, getting all the approvals from the reviewers for work confirmation, as well as the project manager. So the entire approval process, and towards the end, the retention. So all of that has been kind of captured in the single solution. for services industry. So that's pretty much about the accelerator. Any questions, comments, thoughts, Andrew?
Thanks, AJ. Well explained, mate. Look, not probably a big application for our business. Maybe our equipment rebuilds, potentially the odd blanket orders that we might do for that sort of stuff. We don't do a lot of outsourcing of construction type projects, so not a big application. As I said, rebuilds of our equipment and maybe the odd piece of equipment that we get manufactured on our behalf, but not a huge application in our business that I can think of at the moment. I like the technology and I like the concept though. I wish our suppliers had, our clients had it.
Sure.
Great, thanks, Ajay. And just one point to make here, to note, Andrew, this is Phil with Hitachi. So this is just seamless. The user experience that's built, it's built right into Oracle solution. So, any user, they would have no idea that they're even in an extension of the actual, capabilities of Oracle's procurement solution. So, it's just some extra features that we've built on. We've found that it's been very helpful for customers in your space, and oftentimes some of the customers that deploy it, once they start using it, they say, wow, we didn't know that we even kind of needed this. We didn't know that the efficiencies could be there. We didn't know that these processes and workflows could get this much more detailed, and we're seeing a lot of savings thanks to it. So it's one of those things that you may not need it particularly right now, but it's one of those things that it just provides, it kind of opens up a few doors for some other avenues that may come down or that you may find you need. But I think since we do have some extra time here, what I was hoping to do, since we just have Andrew and Anne on from Redpath, we'd love to get a little bit of feedback from you in general, not on for so much our procurement accelerator, but just Oracle's solution in general. Kind of, what are some of your thoughts? Are there any concerns that you have right now when you've seen, the expenses, the procurement, the workflows? Love to kind of pick your brain a little bit and see what your thoughts are.
From my point, there's more functionality than we'll ever need. So the key for us is how we dumb it down, and I'm sure we can do that. Look, I like it's seamless and it's all in one. And as I said before, the devil's in the detail on how you implement it and how we regionalize it. And although we're the same business globally, we operate very differently amongst regions. So that'll be our biggest internal challenge, how we get it to fit different regions. As I said, the functionality is much richer than what we've got now. And as I said, trying to dumb it down is good. It's amazing to see that technology is finally getting to where it should be. When I was a youngster in 1993, I sat on a 6-month project around how Australian companies could use EDI to assist their accounts payable process. So as a global mining company I worked for, I was involved in that. And 27 years later, we're nearly getting there. So quite interesting. So,
that's great. And I think one of the things to note is, Oracle's solution, it may have a lot more capabilities than you need right now, but who knows, where's Redpath going to be in 5 years from now, So it's one of those solutions you can't outgrow. And when it comes to change management, our team has a big focus on change management. So we really have a hands-on type of mentality, and we don't, like you said, dumb it down. We don't try to confuse the users. We try to simplify it, and that's all part of the deployment. That's all part of the deployment and the training process. So,
as I said, with technology, I have a fairly long history with Oracle. I lived in the US back in the 90s. and I was one of the first customers that moved from character-based Oracle ERP to GUI from version 5 to 6. So I have a long relationship with Oracle.
Oh my goodness. Now, now you're talking my language. Andrew, that's almost exactly my own history. I have had the good fortune to be with Oracle for 25 years this year. And one of the things, Dave, if you could just go to the video slide for a quick moment. One of the things that might help Anne and some of the other extended team, Dave, if you just want to, we don't want to go into them, just hover over them. We're going to give you the slide deck, and each of those are very short, 2-3 minute segments that are professionally done by our development organization. And when you say dumb it down or just show me that one little bit of portal or invoice processing or expenses, I really do think these videos hit the mark. So that may be helpful in your deliberations. It is a very good reminder of what's possible. If you just want to just click on one for a sec, then maybe that top one, just so when you click on it, it'll launch another window, I hope. If you click on that, and then turn up the volume and maximize that. I don't know if you got your volume on, Dave. But what it'll do is go through, and so if somebody wanted to see how you actually do change a dashboard and how you actually do go through and get those infolets to change. What's really been incredible is the ability for the line of business people to not have to maintain the schema, but yet get the management reports that you need. I have several customers, and not just in engineering and construction, but all different verticals. And this is the part that they just love. It's the management information in the hands of the line of business that you can go through and say, I'm going to change that threshold or that number of days. Maybe I don't want 10, maybe I want 7, or I want a different business value. So all of the nonsense in the background is looked after by Oracle, right? So it really encourages, and that's really the, the stick and the carrot, if you will. It encourages the line of business to not color outside the lines, right? It encourages people to use the functionality as is and get the management information out. So we'll pass you on that. You can stop that now, David, just to give you a sense as to how the dashboards are directly connected to the data and how that's been taken on by Oracle as a deliverable.
That'll be great, Anne, for showing my team here who are much more in tune with all the details than I am. No, that'll be really good because I will show this video to my team, and also those links to the demos will be great as well. So, and that'll answer a lot of questions that they have. So that's very good, very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I recognize your role and recognize the importance of you carving out this much time for us. Greatly appreciated. One of the things that when you say make it a little simpler, one of the things that Oracle did over the last 18 months, we had a bill of materials that would choke a horse. I mean, quite literally, hundreds and hundreds of individual products. And the feedback from our customer base was, make it cheaper, make it simpler. And so we took what used to be many, many SKUs, boiled them down to a half a dozen, and really ran at price. I mean, pounded the heck out of it. And so I just wanted to share that with you because if you have lineage with Oracle, back at 5, 7, before I came to Oracle, I was a customer. I was a beta customer for version 6 and 7. But anyway, the reason I say that is that the being able to drive down price, drive down simplicity, and that's what we've done here with the new pricing model. And a good example of that, we used to, in the old applications, the on-prem world, we charged. I had charged many customers on the supplier portal side for the suppliers. We don't do that at all anymore. And that's really changed our position in the procurement space. So we'd be happy to, if you have any other questions, review some of the what we really think are the opportunities for much reduced pricing than what has previously been the case from Oracle. So without further ado, that's I think the end of our day.
Hey, Anne, my apologies. Just a couple of things I want to mention. Sorry to interrupt. So Andrew, you mentioned a couple very interesting points: change management and standardized business processes. To I guess quote you in your own words. We do things differently, right? We get to hear all of this a lot, and I'm hoping as we get onto the next few sessions here with Anne Bamfo and other team members, we will be able to talk a lot more about what we do as a part of change management. Just to give you a simple example, for us, training of our key users start from day one. You don't have to worry about bringing Hitachi resources up to speed on day one, but rather, our first session that we do with our key users is what we call as Cloud 101. Essentially a full view of what are the capabilities of the application, what are the reporting capabilities of the application. And then each of our design session would include a full-fledged flow in your own configured Oracle Cloud application with your own data. I'll get into more details when we get into our proposal review session and technical session and all of that with Anne and others. So I'll save you from that, but just wanted to give you a little bit flavor of how we handle both change management as well as user adoption and standardized business processes kind of situations.
Excellent, thank you.
And since Phil, you called out both Andrew and Anne and from Redpath for a feedback, I don't want to miss out on that opportunity, especially since we have a few more minutes of Anne and Andrew over here. So Anne Bamfo, if we may have some feedback from you as well, that would be awesome. And I truly appreciate you. Sitting in a demo myself for the second time straight in a day, I feel your pain. Let me just say this.
In terms of the solution, I think it does have a lot of bells and whistles that we don't currently have. I do agree with Andrew in terms of it might be there's a lot of functionalities that we don't have right now, and we do need to dumb it down. That being said, even though we are a global company, each region has a very specific terms of working. So we just have to make sure that when we do deploy whichever solution we go with whether it be Oracle or another solution, that we do go into that very detail to ensure that we are serving all of the business units and not just think about a global initiative, for example. So there's definitely a lot of things to think about. It was a good demo. You've shown us something to think about, and definitely need to discuss with the team as to how to move forward with the demos that we've seen so far.
Thank you, Anne. Are there any specific areas that you think we haven't spoken about? I absolutely realize that things like timeline and stuff we requested for a separate session, and we have it later. I think early next week to cover. So that's something that's definitely lined up. But do you see any misses from our side?
Not specifically for Android, I don't believe, but per diem for Germany, I don't think that we did cover that during the morning session. So that might be something that we need a short video on, like the one that you're showing us right now, a link to a recorded demo or something like that, just to cover that off. I know that you have it, and you did show it to myself and Lisa on the first initial demo. So we might just need a short video on that one when we do send it out to the team.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll do that. Anything else that comes to your mind?
No, not at this time.
Okay, great. I truly appreciate your time, Andrew's time, everyone else. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anne.
No, that's all I have for today. Again, greatly appreciated, and I do hope that you would consider Oracle and Hitachi. And if you have any questions at all, please let us know.
Sounds good. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have,
Thank you very much.
have a good rest of the day.
You
Take care.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.